So when we talk about specific groups from Asia, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Cambodian, even Vietnamese, we must appreciate that each group contains a multiplicity of cultures in their heritage. So let's take a look at some of the terms, designative terms that were used to identify these diverse populations and labor forces. The word coolie was a historical term for manual laborers from Asia, particularly China and India. And actually it started with Indian labor forces in the 19th century and the early 20th century. But in the United States, as well as in England and the English-speaking countries, it became a contemporary racial slur or an ethnic nickname for people of Asian descent. Now, when it first entered the English language, coolie was a designative term. It described a low-status class of workers. Then it became a pejorative term. With the continuance of colonialism and the resulting social inequalities, the term coolie became a racial epithet. And by the mid to late 19th century in the United States, the term coolie and other trappings of the coolie stereotype were already being used to mock Chinese American launderers or Chinese American restaurateurs who owned their own businesses. And Europeans, especially the French and the British, were the first colonial powers to enter into trade in Asian labor forces. And in the British Empire, coolies were indentured servants who lived under conditions often resembling slavery. Now, the system inaugurated in 1834 in Mauritius involved the use of licensed agents after slavery had been abolished in the British Empire. Thus, indentured followed closely on the heels of slavery in order to replace the slaves. The laborers were, however, only slightly better off than the slaves had been. They were supposed to receive either minimal wages or some small form of payout, such as a small parcel of land or money for their return passage upon completion of their indentures. But unlike slaves, these imported servants could not be bought or sold. So that's coolie labor. Now there's yellow peril, sometimes called yellow terror. This was a color metaphor for race that originated in the late 19th century with immigration of Chinese workers to various Western countries, notably the United States, and it was later associated with the Japanese during the mid-20th century due to Japanese military expansion. The term refers to the skin color of East Asians and the belief that the mass migration of Asians threatened white wages, threatened white standards of living. Let's listen to Professor Kurashige explain to us the origins of the yellow peril.
So the main stereotypes of Asian Americans, it's interesting in that there really has never been just one, right? And I think that's one of the most important things, that Asian Americans, because we've been a marginal population, we've sort of conveniently sometimes been the model minority, and other times we've been the yellow peril that gets demonized. We can talk more about why in different historical periods, in different political and cultural moments, Asians have been portrayed and represented in different ways. So the yellow peril is the concept that Asia, and in particular times Japan in the early 20th century, represented a growing threat to America and the West because of its rising military power. At other times it's been more of the economic power. In the 1980s, Japan was seen more an economic threat. Today, we more likely in America see China viewed as this potential threat, competitor, a source. And there's always been, this real fear, not just that they were a competitor, but that they were in the process of overtaking us. So even if you go back to the early 20th century in California, there were, or in the 19th century, there were discussions about the Chinese population is growing so fast that it will soon, be larger than the white population. Or in early 20th century California, Japanese farmers are taking over so much land that we need these alien land laws to ban Japanese immigrants from owning land. Otherwise, they're going to, white farmers won't even be able to, find work at all in California. So it's always this sense that it's always tied to immigration, right? This notion that Asia is this rising foreign power, or certain places like Japan are rising foreign power, that the people they're sending over to the U.S. are a menace, but they are just the tip of the iceberg of this bigger yellow horde or brown horde or yellow peril that will contaminate or pollute the entire country. Of the foreign power is always connected to the fear of the immigrant and the threat that the immigrant purportedly represents.
Okay, these concepts, this discussion that's made by Professor Kurashige, of course, relates to the yellow peril in the mind of President Trump today. But we will be addressing those issues later on in the course as we get to the contemporary era.